Hello and welcome back to Gerdad is a Fuck Up at Dasa Mountain Pass, or otherwise known as Unreal 1 Part 20. And in this episode, we'll be going through Dasa Mountain Pass, which is a Scar outpost that, well, is mostly a storage area for them.
Isn't this the place where there's like a lot of insects everywhere?
No. That was the Sunspire. Unfortunately, we're redoing this part because, as I've already mentioned, Gerdad is a fuck up, and we've already recorded halfway through the end of the game.
So let it be known that the prefix Gerdad is a fuck up to these videos means that we already had recorded this at least once.
Yes. ASMD.
Die.
Paintball gun. So, in the very little off time that I've actually had in between our recording sessions and uploading stuff, because it takes me 2 hours to upload a single part, I've been going back to replay Shadow of Mordor.
Nice. That's a great game.
It is a great game, except for the fact that there's a difficulty spike just before you get to the second half of the game, where the game pretty much plays itself at that point. And I'm right at that point again, and I hate this particular spike in it.
Well, what is it that they do differently?
They actually throw every enemy type in the game at you all at once, and they justify this by saying, well, you're going up against the war chiefs now. It totally makes sense for them to throw everything at you. But the problem with that is that just an hour before, you start fighting the war chiefs, you're pretty much just going through a bunch of tutorials, and then here you go, hardest fights in the game. And they actually are, because you don't have all of your abilities yet, but you're fighting everything.
Well, I thought, wouldn't you be better equipped to take on the later challenges?
Well, no, because you don't get the game-breaking power-ups until after the first half of the game. Mind you, once you've actually taken down your first set of war chiefs, the game really does play itself.
As I recall, that game, it looked easy, except that you still had to not get hit. You could teleport, you could create these like little melee moments where basically you are in command of the situation, and unless somebody tries to strike you from behind. Well, when on the subject of, getting every enemy type on the game, the enemies create, like, situations, and in isolation, these situations are innocuous, and you can actually apply a specific strategy to them. However, like, it's kind of like 2 + 2 = 8. Like, it's not... Putting two different game situations at once is not necessarily the sum of its parts. It actually makes it way, way harder than either one in isolation.
To a certain extent. For example, warriors and berserkers together are honestly cake. They really are. It's when you start putting hunters and the defenders together that you end up having this huge. Okay, who do I prioritize? And how do I get to them? Because it's not just a defenders and hunters. You also still have berserkers and warriors.
Yeah, I mean, I would think take out the softest targets first, and then take out the other ones.
The softest targets are pinging you with arrows and spears from behind the defender walls.
Well, then they're not soft targets. Those are the hard targets.
Okay, the soft targets endlessly respawn.
Oh, what the hell? Oh, that sucks. That genuinely sucks.
Yeah, I'm not kidding. The last war chief that you take down is damn near impossible to take it down because you don't have all of your powers. With all of your powers, that fight in particular would be so much goddamn so much easier.
Yeah.
And it's not the war chief himself that's the problem there. It's flushing him out under whatever condition he's got attached to him, and it is whatever condition he's got attached to him.
endlessly respawning enemies is a pretty fucking hard situation to get through.
Well, they have to do it in that instance, or else you flat out would not be able to flush him out. Because damn it, I fell off the. I am not so good at the platforming in Unreal.
No, you're saying you could flush out the war chiefs way more easily if he wasn't surrounded by endlessly spawning enemies.
Yes, but it would also create a game state where it would be very easy to fail to flush him out, given how the controls actually do function. One of the main problems that I have, because I'm playing on mouse and keyboard over controller, is that it's very difficult for me to execute specific targets. I mean, landing executions in general is a good thing, but for the specific war chief that I had to take on, in order for him to spawn, I had to actually execute specific targets. Now, executing those targets themselves is difficult when my combo meter, which charges up my execution power, gets interrupted by me getting hit with spears and arrows.
Oh, so you have to avoid getting hit in order to do a successful execution?
Yep, you have to build up your chain meter to 8 or more at that point, because I don't have enough power to unlock the power-ups. You can put it down to 5 after the game.
Now refresh my memory. Are these execution tasks, like, are these missions that you can replay, or is it do you have to repeat a save state every time you fail?
Neither, actually. If you fail the mission, just continues on without you. And what happens there is that time passes. The Nemesis system keeps track of stuff. New world events happen, all that kind of stuff, and there really isn't a punishment for dying in Shadows of Mordor. I'm thankful for that, but it still took me 20 minutes on each particular attempt to try to do this, only to fail at it.
Oh yeah. No, that would piss me off. These are the things that make gamers go crazy.
Kind of.
Nice shooting.
Thank you. I like the auto mag. I don't actually give all that much praise to the auto mag usually, and I really should, because much like the ASMD, it's one of the few railgun style weapons in the game. It just compensates for it by having absolute piss damage.
Yeah, I like that you can use it either like an SMG or an assault rifle.
Not really. I mean, an assault rifle, sure, but not really an SMG.
What I mean to say is that, you were shooting just over a wall in order to hit your target, and you could just tap the trigger button and only fire one bullet. That's more
assault rifle specs.
That's more characteristic of an assault rifle versus an SMG, where if you so much as touch the trigger, you fire like 25 bullets.
That's usually with most SMG classes.
Yeah.
With increasing recoil on each round.
Purple sky.
Hold it. Have we not done Sunspire at this point? I don't remember. I think we have, but I'm not sure, because we're going through Dasa now.
These are the conditions of the Gerda is a fuck-up chronicles. Even we can't remember where the hell we are.
Yeah. So what have you been up to recently, Cloud?
I had actually just finished reading On the Road by Jack Kerouac yesterday. I only had about 30 pages left by the time I woke up yesterday morning, so I made a point to just bang out the whole thing in one reading, and And that's what I did. I held the book for like at least a half hour straight, just to bang out the last 25 pages.
All right.
On the Road is it doesn't even really have a plot now that I think about it. It's just a bunch of stuff that happens in the late 40s with this guy Sal Paradise and his partner in crime Dean Moriarty. They road trip across the country, getting in all kinds of hijinks and boozy adventures and going to, you know, just going crazy all the time. And that's it. That's the whole book.
Well, to be perfectly honest, there is place in a modern fiction for that kind of story. Plus, the guy's name is Moriarty, so I'm assuming that there actually is a bunch of Sherlock references in it.
No Sherlock references.
Really? That's odd.
It's not really a mystery. Like I said, like there's.
It doesn't really have to be a mystery in order for it to have Sherlock references.
Yeah, it requires good. The backbone of a good Sherlock Holmes story, and they're all good, is using context clues in order to explain situations. I'd say you kind of got a point there. Sal, the narrator, is very observant. He draws his own conclusions based on what's directly in front of him, and along with his very poetical style of presenting information. And on the subject of poetry, that's probably the most important contribution of On the Road, is that it's a very poetic book.
Okay.
And that's likely why many hail it as a masterpiece. So there.
Honestly, poetry in your novels is not one of the things that I am personally looking for when it comes to a fictional experience. I mean, poetry can be very powerful stuff, certainly, but I am more of an opinion of if you have a well-constructed narrative, that alone can sell me on the world that we're in, as opposed to, you know, attempting to steroid and explain things with poetic verse.
It's not really true verse. It's more like, well, I use poetry because poetry is all about simile. It's about comparisons between two unlike things. So when Sal is talking about the road, he's talking about like a river. He's talking about the river of life. It's sad to watch as it falls away behind you. It's fucking amazing when it's right in front of you, and the future is ever dark and mysterious.
Unless you're a DC comic.
But you have to keep in mind that you're reading a story about a bunch of guys who are just driving across the country all the time. Like, there's nothing poetic about that. It sounds actually quite
There can
lazy.
be a lot of poetic things about that, honestly.
Oh, absolutely. Like a description.
But you just said that there's nothing poetic about it.
No, there's only because it's terribly ordinary.
It's very ordinary in description, but not necessarily in practice. There are a lot of smaller events that happen during these pan-continental road trips that we're almost out of time on our part. So we'll have to save this for later. Damn it.
Hey. Where the hell are we?
We are in the Dasa Mountain Cellars. This particular level is very labyrinthine and has got a lot of different species that do things. I am not that big a fan of this level, but it's still part of the Dasa Mountain architecture, so it's okay.